Hello my treasures, it's time for some more March of the Lich King cards. This time both of the types of cards that were revealed today are for two types of decks that I predicted would get additional support before the new rotation actually happened. So let's begin. The first card revealed is Daring Drake, which is a 4-cost 4 attack 4 HP dragon minion for Paladin that has Rush, Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, gain +1/+1. With the Year of the Hydra, we actually saw a few dragons rotate in for Paladin, which is one of the reasons why I expected us to see maybe some dragons before the new rotation actually happened. And to be honest, this one isn't actually that bad. It's a nice mid-game ranged dragon that you don't normally have access to. Most of the dragons right now currently in rotation are either very late game or very early game, and a lot of the very early game minions don't really do that much. But I do think this one is probably pretty decent because it doesn't require too much in a dragon based deck where you just need to have any type of dragon in your hand. So it'll be a 5/5 no matter what. And it also does have Rush, so you can use it as an early game removal. I don't think it's the strongest dragon in the world, but it is pretty decent. We also did see the Whelp that does 3 damage whenever you play it if you have another dragon in your hand, and there should be enough cards between the ones that we're seeing here for Paladin, the ones that already exist in Standard, and some of the neutral cards to maybe make a fully functional dragon deck work. The next card revealed is Flight of the Bronze, which is a spell for Paladin that discovers a dragon and has the mana thirst 7 summon a 5/5 Drake with Taunt, which will also be a dragon itself. You're probably not going to want to play this really early on in the game. It does give a dragon-based deck a turn 1 play if you really need to use it on turn 1. However, most of the time you're probably going to wait until like turn 7 to try to maybe get the additional 5/5 Drake out, or if you really need a dragon in your hand to turn on some of the other dragon synergies, then this card can just give you one of those for 1 mana, which is actually pretty nice on its own. I do think this one will probably see a lot of play, especially in a Dragon Paladin deck, as it is a really nice searcher. It costs not that much, and it does have the added benefit of having a late game advantage on giving you 2 bodies for 1. Alright, now for the next card, which is Time Warden, which is a 4-cost 3 attack 5 HP dragon minion for Paladin that has the battle cry until the end of your next turn. Dragons you summon gain Taunt and Divine Shield. This doesn't really work that well with the previous card that we just had seen. However, it does work with a lot of the other dragons that you would just want to give Divine Shield and Taunt, so you can use them either to ram into your opponent's minions or to protect them for additional turn from some type of AoE that your opponent might have as a AoE board clear. Again, this is more Divine Shield synergy, so you could use this in a Divine Shield aggro based deck, though I do think it will fit probably more at home in a dragon-based deck, and it is a pretty decent 4-drop for such a deck, as long as you have some type of dragon on the board. And there is enough cheap dragons where this should be able to at least buff up 1 while you play it down if you play on turn 4. And now, for the final Paladin card, Anachondros, which is a 7-cost 8 attack 8 HP dragon legendary minion that has the battle cry, send all other minions 2 turns into the future. Basically a pseudo Twisting Nether for Paladin, which is something that the deck actually kind of needs, or is at least missing. We do have things like the Equality and City Tax combo that you can use to wipe out your entire opponent's board, but this does allow you to basically put out an entire new board while having that 8/8 on turn 7, which isn't actually that bad. It'll prevent your opponent from instantly killing it if they're aggro based. It's early enough of a minion where you can use it in a aggro based matchup and probably not die, given the fact that you do have other ways to heal yourself up in Paladin currently in rotation. I think this is probably an overall pretty decent dragon to just randomly discover also, because we do have a few methods to do that now. Sure, you're going to lose all of your minions too, but I think the advantage of making your opponent lose all their minions, so you can then play down a bunch of big to small dragons or other type of minions if you want to use this in a more control style deck. Again, it's just a really good way to stall out for 2 turns, and I can't wait to play around with this card. Alright, the next card revealed, which is for another theme that I assumed was going to get a bunch of cards because of some of the cards that rotated back in, is Scourge Supplies, which is a 3-cost spell for Warlock that draws 3 cards, choose one to discard. The great thing about this card is you actually get to choose the card that you want to discard. However, I'm assuming it's going to be a choice out of 3 instead of your entire hand, which means you could, in theory, still discard a very key combo piece, which is going to be a little bit annoying. The other comparison that you can make if you played a bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Graceful Charity, which is a card that has been banned for almost the entire lifespan of that game. Sure, this card does have the added downside that it'll probably run on the Discover mechanic, where you can only choose one of 3 cards to discard, but this does give you an additional 1 card draw off of, instead of Graceful Charity, where you have to discard 2. However, Hearthstone also doesn't have a graveyard where you can take advantage of cards that you actually discard, so a card like this might not be as strong as you would actually originally think. There are a bunch of different draw power engines that you can use currently in Warlock that might make this card a little bit too slow for anything outside of a discard Warlock, but I'm so excited to try to make a discard Warlock deck work. Honestly, since seeing the High Priestess and Tiny Soldier, or whatever the hell it's called, rotate back in, I've been looking at the cards every single expansion to try to make something work. And finally, we have all the cards that are needed. All right, the next card revealed is Walking Dead, which is a 3-cost 2 attack 5 HP undead minion. Taunt. If you discard this minion, summon it. Just a really good discard minion for Warlock, which is something that you really need in that style of deck, as this will allow you to gain some advantage by discarding it from your hand. I think normally this might cost a little bit too much, but then again, it does look like a very well-statted minion for a 3-cost minion, especially when it has taunt on it. It's going to be a little bit annoying if you can actually manage to get this out before with some of the other discard cards that currently exist in Standard, but I do think that is a risk that we needed to take. All right, for the next card revealed, it is Shadow Barrage, which is a 5-cost shadow spell. Whenever you play or discard this, deal 6 damage, randomly split among all enemies. Not really the big payoff that I would have wanted for a discard Warlock, but in theory, you could use this in combination with Dark Vein in order to get at least 12 damage split among all enemies, especially if you can figure out a way to have additional copies of this in your hand that you could easily trigger off of some other additional discards. I think this probably costs a little bit too much for you to want to play it normally, because it is only 1 additional damage over something like Bone Evil, which is something that can only hit your opponent's minions. However, this can go directly to face, which is probably why it costs 5 instead of 3. Which also does remind me, we haven't actually seen any Fel Warlock support since the initial batch of Fel Warlock cards. I get it, none of the themes this year have really fit that type of Warlock. However, it would have been a little bit nice to see some additional Fel cards. Who knows, maybe we will in the rest of the Warlock cards, or even the mini set. You never know. All right, now for the next card revealed, which is Savage Yamajar. I know I probably said that wrong, but it is what it is. We're going with it. It is a 5-cost undead minion for Warlock with 7 attack, 7 HP, rush, battlecry, discard 2 cards. Probably pretty decent, gives you a 7/7 body for 2 cards in your hand, and if you have enough cards that actually get additional effects off when they're actually discarded, this card is incredibly good. The only downside is you don't get to choose which 2 cards that you're actually discarding, so if you have some type of really big key combo in a discard Warlock deck, you might not always be able to get it off, but I'm assuming you're not going to try to run a bunch of cards where you worry about discarding them, or if you do, then you're going to try to make sure your hand is full before you use a card like this. There is also the next card that will be revealed that goes into this card incredibly good, and I do think that will probably be the main reason you're going to run a card like this, because as it currently stands, 2 cards for a 7/7 on turn 5 I don't think is really that strong nowadays in Hearthstone, but I could be completely wrong. It's going to be a really fun deck to try out either way. And now for the final card revealed, Amorphous Slime, which is a 5-cost, 5 attack, 3 HP minion that has Battlecry, discard a random undead. Death Rattle, summon a copy of it. This is what I meant by the last card will probably be used in combination with this, because if you can actually get this out on the board, you can get a 7/7 minion pretty easily for only one discard instead of two. Also, I think this is the first slime that doesn't actually do anything with weapons, which is actually kind of interesting. But this card, I do think is probably going to be incredibly playable in a discard Warlock deck, because you could, in theory, just run one or two key undead minions in combination with this, so you're always going to discard those, thus being able to cheat them out for 5 mana. It depends on what legendary minions we actually see for Warlock, but I'm going to assume that we'll probably see at least one undead legendary for Warlock, and something like this is going to be incredibly good. I also am a little bit curious if we'll see a huge slime as the other legendary for Warlock, or if we're just going to see no other discard support for the class. It would be a little bit of shame if they supported this theme without giving them some type of legendary, because that deck always seems to be one or two cards off of being actually incredibly playable. Sure, you do have the High Priestess where you could use that as a legendary for this type of deck, but you would also want to see something in the set where it gets supported again, right? Because why would you support a deck without giving them some type of big win condition through a legendary or something? Who knows, maybe something that will do damage equal to the amount of cards you've discarded, or maybe something that will play every single card that you discarded. Either way, it could be incredibly fun, and I can't wait to see if we do see additional discard Warlock support. Alright, so those were all the cards revealed today. Let me know down below which ones you're most looking forward to using. I really want to use Discard Warlock. It's a deck that I have a really soft spot for, and I always do like decks that you discard a bunch of cards to get additional effects in any card game that I'm actually playing, and that's something that I've been missing in Hearthstone for quite a while now. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.